town. They're going to be at the Oil Kings game this weekend. Eric McNamara, Team 1260 Sports legal analyst. He joins us. Eric, how are you?
I'm good, guys. I'm good. Just let you know again, there is an echo. Okay, I've called from my cell phone. I've called from my office phone. I've called from my neighbor's home when they weren't home, and there is an echo.
You know what's you should turn down the radio, man. That's probably what it is. Stop trying to listen to yourself online. Okay?
Guys, what if I use that line every caller uses? They ask you questions, say, I'll hang up and listen to the answer.
Yeah, well, no, next time I want you to come on and say, hey, long-time listener, first-time caller. That's what I want to get from you next time around.
Or how about, I can't stand your show. Goodbye.
Yeah, we get one of those every once in a while, too.
Yeah, we get a lot of that.
It's brilliance. It's brilliance.
Eric, first of all, and let's get down to the big business here. And you're a Habs fan. What do you think of the trade and the way it went down, I guess, last night?
It's fascinating. The first thing is I am completely enamored with Pierre Gauthier. He looks so much like Ralph Nader, I find it distracting. Every time I see him, I think of the Corvair. And the Habs are looking a bit like the Corvair now. Let me say that. The way the trade went down, it was so bizarre to see a player pulled mid-game. It almost struck me as personal because I had heard that Cammalleri and Gauthier that day or the day before had a bit of a run-in, and Cammalleri didn't walk away too happy, neither did Gauthier. And Gauthier was all smiles at the press conference. As far as the trade goes, I mean, it's not a bad trade for the Habs. They get someone that can score in the dirty areas. Most of their players are perimeter players. But I just didn't like how the whole thing went down. And generally speaking with Gauthier, I'm just trying to get the feeling that this season he has been reactionary. He has made a bunch of bizarre moves, firing Perry Pern for no good apparent reason, firing Jacques Martin, signing Markov to a long-term deal. And now this Cammalleri situation, I don't know. I'm not feeling like he's got a long-term plan in place. He's been mostly reactionary.
Well, and reactionary, and like you mentioned, some of the obscurity, and we've talked about it with a couple of our guests this morning. But when you look at this, how long for Pierre Gauthier in your mind before he's the guy?
What's funny is, Jeff Molson, is part of this corporate culture, which, I'm part of, and you kind of get how it works. And Gauthier, for me, just the vibe I get is that I'm not seeing him as kind of this consummate team player, and that is really important in a corporate culture. He kind of seems to be sort of out on his own, making these bizarre reactionary moves. The culture, the Canadians' culture isn't that great. A lot of fans are kind of turning, I think, a bit against Gauthier. They're not appreciating his style. I would be surprised to see Gauthier as the Habs GM, perhaps beyond next season. I'm not sure how Gainey plays into all this. I know he's still an advisor. I'm not sure how many of these moves are really, his moves, but the vibe I get is Gauthier is in charge. I'm not sure that there is this meshing of personalities, Gauthier's personality versus what Molson wants the Habs culture to be.
It's somewhat interesting because I agree with you. Pierre Gauthier has not made many good moves at all, and it's been very strange in the way he has handled that general manager position with the Montreal Canadiens. But as far as this trade goes, I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. And it was awkward how it went down. But you look at it, they're saving $3 million a year. They got a guy who is bigger, who actually has scored more goals in the last 2.5 seasons than Cammalleri. They got a second-round draft pick and a guy who's playing pretty good in the Western League, whereas you look at it from Calgary's point of view, and they kind of just keep doing the same thing, round and round and round we go, which is why I'm a little surprised with how much heat Gauthier is taking as compared to a little bit of the praise we've seen so far today for Jay Feaster.
And I saw your tweet last night about how you thought it was a good trade, and I actually agree with you. I think that on paper, this is actually a pretty good trade for the Habs. They get the kind of player that they needed, a guy that goes into the dirty areas, a guy that has size. He's 6'2". He can, he'll score the goals, plays a bit more like Eric Cole and less like, Plekanec and Gomez and those guys. And on the flip side of the Flames, it just struck me as a surprise. This is an organization that hasn't committed to the rebuild. I don't get it. They keep adding these big contracts and not tearing the whole thing apart because that team really long-term isn't looking too healthy. So, I agree with you. It was a good trade. I think the overall sentiment is maybe the trade itself is good for the Habs. The problem I think a lot of us have is we're kind of falling out of love with Gauthier with a series of reactionary moves, which sometimes seem to be driven more by spite And it's probably not the case, but more by spite than by hockey. And as we know on Seinfeld, you can't return a coat out of spite.
No, you definitely can't. Eric Macramala with us. Eric, legal ramifications of the NHLPA stepping in, are there any on the whole realignment issue?
No, you know what? When I saw this go down, to me it wasn't a big deal at all. I mean, let me just put it in perspective. If I'm sitting at my desk and I'm working for the union, and the NHL wants to realign on the eve of potentially contentious CBA negotiations, I close my Team1260.com website. I refuse or reject the realignment, then I go grab a sandwich. This isn't actually a huge deal. You can't be forfeiting leverage at this point on the eve of what are potentially massive and contentious negotiations. You have to try and hang on to your leverage. And the union, as per the CBA, had the right to withhold their consent because realignment affects the, quote, the conditions of employment for its members or the players. That's in the CBA. And when it comes to withholding consent unreasonably, and Daly thought that they were unreasonable, the legal test is this. It doesn't, your reasons for withholding don't need to be right so long as they're reasonable. And Donald Fehr was of the view, look, I need more information on how this will affect player travel. I need more information on how this will affect the playoffs and whether some teams have a better chance of making it than others. So give me more information. That's not unreasonable. And on that basis, of course, with a view to, setting things up and positioning things for the CBA negotiations, they turn it down. But honestly, legal standpoint, guys, it's not that big a deal.
Eric Macramala with us. Eric, how's the new year treating you in general?
Like every other month, poorly.
I figured so. I figured you were probably struggling for the most part.
I'm always struggling, guys. I'm just keeping my head above water. Things are always very difficult and challenging for me.
We're going to have Steve Carlson from Slapshot on here right away. Your favorite Slapshot moment, what do you got?
Oh, I forget the name of the guy. It's just been so long, but when he's behind the net and trying to take the goalie's head off. I love that.
Not a bad one by any stretch of the imagination.
What's your favorite?
Oh, geez. It's going to be very generic. And it's because it's become so popular. We're going to have one of the guys on next. But when he first goes and he sees them foiling up, what do you guys, I don't know, put on a foil coat. That's classic. It's to me, I know that's what a lot of people say, but for me, Chaser, what about you?
The goalie getting interviewed. That's funny stuff.
Yeah, that's a good segment as well.
The French goalie getting interviewed.
Denny Lemieux.
Denny Lemieux, thank you.
It's funny, they're always talking about the all-time best sports movies. They always have Rudy and movies like that, but this one, to me, is the best all-time sports movie.
Yeah, it's right out there. We've had that discussion before in the past for sure, and I'm pretty sure Slapshot was smack dab up right near the top, if not right at the top. You're right. Eric, we appreciate the time. I'm sure the Senators are in some way involving you in planning the parade, so we'll let you get back to that.
Good guys.
And you can let us know they're out next week.
Wearing the orange jacket. You're the guy with the flashlight kind of orange wand.
No, I use the orange jacket when I work as a crossing guard on weekends.
There you go. See?
That's just creepy. We'll talk to you later, man.
Weekends because you're... Anyway.
There we go.
See you later, guys.
That's Eric Macramala, Team1260 Sports legal analyst. You can go to our website at team1260.com, click on Nielsen and Chase, and then scroll down. You'll see a link to his Offside Sports blog. You can go check that out anytime. Oil Kings, of course, and man, the Oil Kings are playing good right now.
Oh, that's an understatement.
Have to think that one last night feels good. I mean, for everybody involved, but especially the GM who put this team together. Down a minute and a half, picking